Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Diaz, president and founder of Larry Jacob Internet Marketing, and I bring you another episode of Defining Infusionsoft Success. This week, I bring you the smiling Ricardo Gonzalez. How are you, Ricardo?
Doing great, man. Como dicen en Costa Rica, pura vida.
Yes, Costa
Puerto Rican
Rica, and
Costa Rican language, right?
yeah. So here I bring,
Thank you.
yeah. So here's the Cuban host bringing you a Puerto Rican who's settling now in the Dominican Republic. So we got the whole Caribbean covered.
That was going to be a radio show I did with two Cubans and a smart Puerto Rican.
There you go. I won't go there.
It's good.
Good. So Ricardo and I have been working together, gosh, over a year now, maybe more than that. And he is a client. We've built one membership site for him. It's a content management for his Bilingual America program, of which he's president and founder. Tell him just a little bit about yourself and the programs that you run.
Yeah, man. I mean, you said it, man. My dad is Puerto Rican, one of 27 kids, and my mother was from an orphan from Kentucky, man. So I'm literally a Puerto Rican hillbilly. So
I did not know that.
I think people's messages and their missions come out of their lives, and so I watched two people from completely different cultures, completely different life backgrounds, worldviews, and really have a hard time for many years. And I got one of my my abuelita, she's going, mira Ricardito, pero Dios mío, pero ¿por qué tú haces eso? And the other one, she's going, now Rick, and don't do that, Rick. So, I lived a very culturally complex life, and I saw my parents really struggle with this, and then watched other people go through that. And, we're going through a lot of that in our country, right? And so just over time, just dedicated myself to really helping, especially Latino, non-Latino life, business relationships, community relationships. So Bilingual America is really a cultural communications company. So we work with Latinos on how to be better leaders in the American enterprise. We work with non-Latinos on how to really work specifically and strategically with Latinos in business and government relationships, these types of things. I've got a new course coming out here real soon called Cultural Masters, coming off of a new book called 6 Stages of Cultural Mastery. It's a little bit broader. I'm very excited about it. It actually leads people through the process of, how do I become a master of culture? And because, all leadership is cultural in nature. And we're living in very complex times culturally. And people are out there trying to affect cultural change, but they really haven't mastered culture itself. They don't understand the process of it. They don't understand really how it works, and they're not even prepared internally to be able to manage it, much less transform it. So, so we're doing, Bilingual America. We're really course driven, and I know today you want to talk with me about course development, and online courses, and all that stuff. So we've been doing that for over 20 years.
Yeah, and in contrast to some other clients that have struggled with this, you're one of the guys that came through with the content right away, both because you had a history with the content and you really had an understanding of what kind of content works best online.
Yeah, a lot of guys, and ladies, they start out with, speeches or books. I started out with courses. I never came with books first and speeches first. The speeches for me, with organizations and corporations, they came as a result of our courses.
Gotcha.
And books came on the backside. And so I never led with books and speeches. We always led with courses. I'm a huge and firm believer in the value of courses, because a book can get somebody's attention, can really get somebody thinking, but a course that's properly developed and taught and assimilated, I mean, it's life-changing, man. It's transformative. And so I love courses. That's where I've lived now for all these years.
Well, and you're one of those guys that's got a very concrete, because one of your premier courses is teaching English speakers Spanish, and you've got a guarantee. Give me 2 years. You got to put the time in, but there's a very concrete result. It's not like I think I know how to market something, in a marketing course. It's I can now communicate in Spanish, which is a very concrete, measurable achievement.
Yeah, I mean that's the Spanish Power course, and when we started that course, we looked at the market and we said, what's the need, right? And the need was for adult professionals to be able to get to business proficiency. Well, business proficiency isn't, buenos días, cómo está, dónde está el baño. Business proficiency is being able to conduct meetings, be able to conduct interviews, be able to work with peers in another language, being able to travel effectively and be in those conversations, being able to make a presentation of the language. So what we did was we just reverse engineered that. That's really kind of, I think, one of the laws of course development is you have to start with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
So like with that particular course, the goal was we want to get someone to minimum 80 to 90% of an educated native. And that was the stated goal of that course before we ever started to design it. So we knew what the result was going to be. We just then reversed engineered out there. So what we did was we mocked up, okay, what can a person, an educated native, do in their language skill, right? And what would 90% of that be? What would 85% of that be? And then you just start working backwards, and it takes you back to the beginning, right? So
sure.
When you start at the beginning, you're not seeing the end. But as teachers and as course developers, we have to start with the end in mind. And so I think you have to be extremely concrete as to what exactly, not do I want the student to learn, but what exactly do I want the student to be able to do when they complete this course? What skills will they have that are actually actionable? Because when people are buying courses, right, I mean, you can sell them a lot of smoke. And you can say, this is the greatest thing, and you're going to learn this, and you're going to learn that. You can throw this big, huge list at them. But at the end of the day, people are looking for a very specific result that will bring them a very specific value. Okay? So we'll tell people, look, if you're just looking to get by in a restaurant, go buy Rosetta Stone, right?
Sure.
Because those are just common market courses. But if you're looking to communicate, for example, in this particular course, the Spanish Power course, at a high level of Spanish, business proficiency, then here's what it takes. And by the way, we never couch that, Jorge, in terms of 2 years. We have a 6-month plan to get there. We have a 1-year plan to get there. And we have a 2-year plan to get there. We couch it in hours.
Oh, gotcha.
Course development should be so refined that the teacher should be able to say to the student, in X number of hours, if you do X, Y, Z.
Right. So there's the prerequisite. You have to put this much time in.
This specific skill, right? Okay. So we do it, we'll say to people, we can get you 80 to 90% proficient of an educated native in 260 to 280 hours. That's the value proposition. So when somebody comes into that course, not only are we setting the expectation very high for them, but we know it works, right? You better know what you're doing.
Right.
Okay. But to me, that's like the number one thing in course development. What's the end? What's the end result? And now as a teacher, as a course developer, how am I going to get you there?
Right. Now that in the list, because you sent me your 12-point course development checklist, and starting with the end in mind is your first one. I scrolled on down here a little bit, and it was interesting. You had leave enough white space. And that was kind of interesting because that was one that, I mean, it makes sense once I read it, but it wasn't one that I would have put as one of those just off the top of my head.
Yeah, people are saturated, right? Used to be that the adult attention span was like 17 minutes. Now the adult attention span is what, 144 characters or a Snapchat?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we are living in a time where you have to create what I call beginnings and ends in your teaching and pedagogical process, right? Okay? And because people learn best at the beginning of a learning session, at the end, and if that lull in the middle is too long, right?
That's when
they're bored.
Yeah, they're
people
fading.
Pull off, especially when you're talking about online learning, where you're not sitting there and you're not watching them. So
there's nothing in. Yeah, there's nothing in forcing them to stay in their seat and not talk to the next one or pick up a phone, right?
Absolutely. So it has to be very engaging, and the way you make courses engaging is to keep it moving. And so when you talk about white space, you can talk about white space from a standpoint of design, just when you actually design your course manuals, that you don't put I've seen courses designed, I go, my God, it's like looking at a blur after a couple seconds, There's just too much text and stuff, not enough images, not enough breathing room. And it just feels ominous. So when you can talk about white space from a course design standpoint and say, hey, this has to look and feel good. But you can also talk about it from a pedagogical standpoint in, I have to let people breathe.
Sure.
Okay, I have to let people breathe. So like when I develop my courses, I always develop steps. okay? And so, like, for example, in the Spanish Power course, just because it's been referred to, and we have other courses, there are 6 steps in every lesson.
Yeah.
And no step lasts more than 10, 15 minutes. It just keeps moving, and even within those steps, there are multiple sequences of movement and interactivity. So courses today, the more movement, the more interactivity that can be developed within the course, the more engaged the student will be, because they'll always feel like there's something fresh, there's something new coming at them, right? And you have to remember as a course developer that if you stay too long on one thing, you're going to lose people.
Yeah, and so even changing over, so I guess that goes into the pacing of the course, right?
Yeah, depending on the type of course you're teaching, right? Because I have courses that are 6 weeks, but they're really 6 hours of online course. There's another 6 hours in live coaching or facilitation. The Spanish course is 260 hours, right?
Right.
Plus we integrate that with one-on-one tutoring so that the student has the proper amount of coaching and practice and so on and so forth. It just, again, everything is dictated by what's the end result, right? The end result is going to dictate that length of that course, because then you have to have integrity what that result is. You can't say I want this end result and then you make the course too short.
Right. Yeah, because people can't absorb it.
To get that result. So what I do in those cases, if I have a really big picture, big result, right? Then instead of say one course with just one course, I'll have one course with 4 levels.
Right, which is how you partition. Again, learning Spanish is no walk in the park.
Yeah, exactly. But because you have to structure in for people this sense of continuous accomplishment.
Right. Otherwise, it's like, okay, I haven't accomplished anything until I get to the top of the hill, and it's like, well,
you can't let people feel like that. They have to feel celebrated, and they have to celebrate a lot of little wins as they go through a learning process, right? And that's part of course development. It's just part of understanding my role as a teacher, as an educator, okay? So coming back to your content guys out there, you're working with guys with great content, right? They've got something out there. Okay?
Well, and typically it's something that works in person, in a lot of cases. So you can't just videotape someone giving a presentation, 2 days over a weekend and then convert it over to online and cross your fingers it's going to work, because it's just not going to.
No, that doesn't work. And I would say too, what's the goal of the course developer? Are your clients, for example, are they seeking personal freedom? Like in my case, okay. So yeah, you want economic health. We've sold millions of dollars of courses over the years, thank God, right?
Yeah.
But I also live on the north coast of the Dominican Republic with a view of the ocean out of my office. Okay, so I'm where I want to be, right?
Oh, right, and you're not required. Like for example, when I used to do consulting, I was required to live within 30 minutes of a major airport, because otherwise you couldn't get to places quickly enough. You're not one of those guys.
One of the beauties of running online courses correctly is it creates this enormous amount of freedom for the course developer, if in fact you develop a course correctly and you know how to market it properly. Okay, so a lot of the people in Infusionsoft, they're pretty good marketers, but they're not very good course developers. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not innate to knowing how to market the thing.
Exactly. So I've tried to limit my speeches. I could be doing speeches every week, and I get paid very well to do public speakers. But I do the LeaderCast stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not looking to speak every week in public, because I don't want to be traveling that much. So why would I do that if we can run 5-6 figures a week, in courses?
Sure.
We've been doing this for years, and you have the kind of lifestyles you want, and you're still making a huge impact on people, maybe more, right?
No, right, because if your reach is going to be bigger.
You can reach more people. Yeah. So another thing, I know we don't have a tremendous amount of time here. I would say, Jorge, just for you, the people who are looking at course development, is this: you have to make a decision of, am I just going to take my content and make a course of it online, and just let the course run, kind of evergreen, right? And just try to sell the course, online course, with no support really, or am I going to take that course and am I also going to offer, like, say, facilitation or coaching along with that course?
Yeah, like a 1 or 2, 1 hour a week when you're doing a question and answer in a group setting.
Yeah, like we do, like our Success with Hispanics course, for example, is a 6-week course. It has 6 hours of online course, but it also has 6 hours of facilitated group sessions, like 5 people in a group, right?
Okay.
And those sessions are like coaching, strategic sessions. It's not a regurgitation of that same information. It's taking that work that the student has done, let's say in prep work, through the course that's online. And then it's getting them with a trainer or a facilitator. And we do this by video, by the way. Same thing you're doing.
So similar to this, right? It's that you just have more windows.
Yeah, because GoToMeeting can run 10 concurrent videos,
right.
So we keep it to 5, so it's a manageable group.
Sure.
You just want to keep a manageable group. The economics work very well.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. But you're leveraging then your content, and you're really bringing it in now into coaching, but you still don't have to be there.
Right. No, and by the way, the other benefit too is, when I was in college, I learned a lot from my peers in that class and what happened outside of class. And so you have to, in a look at a video and watch a course, you're basically, it's 2 in the morning when I finally got around to getting to this course, and I'm in a vacuum. But if I can create that, that learning tribe, you've facilitated much more than just the content you bring to the table.
Yeah, you can look at creating cohorts online and things of this nature, but I'm a believer in these facilitated groups, our Success with Spanish 6-week course, and that's long enough for what we want to accomplish in that course, which is we want to get them, the kind of a deep understanding of the psychosocial. How does the Latino culture work, right?
Okay.
How do we get where we got, and where are we going, and then how do you apply that to your business? Okay, so specifically, if you're in labor management, how does that apply to safety training? How does it apply to this? How does it apply to that? Or how does it apply to social media? How does it apply to your marketing? So we can do that in 6 weeks and 6 hours of facilitated. It's about 12 hours of process. But it's a fantastic experience. A language takes longer to learn, right?
Yeah, right.
It's a lifelong skill. And so that's a much longer process from a standpoint of the number of hours and stuff. But even then, there we don't have group coaching. We have one-on-one coaching because we just found that works, right?
No, right. And the shared experience is not as relevant or maybe not relevant at all.
In leadership training and development, it works well, right? So I think that as your clients look out there, by the way, let me say this because I'll give you your kudos here. You've been a big help to us at Bilingual America.
Thanks.
Primarily, I would say this. Primarily in just kind of the union of Infusionsoft with membership site software and the LMS, right? The learning management system.
Yeah.
Because the way it really requires all 3, right? And so, you've got to have somebody out there that can kind of jump in and help you with some of this stuff, because in the same ways that maybe your clients aren't course development experts, you're probably not experts in the meshing or the harmonization of Infusionsoft with the LMS and with membership site software. So that's an important skill that you're bringing to the process. That's a very necessary element. But there's tons we could talk about here. You just have to tell me kind of where you want to go.
No.
Course development, because course development and online courses have created my lifestyle, and they've also created a tremendous amount of positive influence for our clients. Where we've seen so many people their lives just completely transformed. We've got a course for Latinos in Spanish called Líderes Exitosos, which means successful leaders, and specifically on how to be effective leaders in the American enterprise, right? So specifically for Latinos, but on how to succeed in the American company as a leader.
Yeah, so it's like the flip. It's the flip of the.
Yeah, it's a total recalibration of thinking as it relates to leadership models, because you're coming out of Cuba. I'm from Puerto Rico. I've traveled in much of Latin America and stuff, and so it's a different leadership model, right? So we're just recalibrating that.
Yeah.
But man, we've had people come to us and say, "Man, you've changed me as a father.
No.
This changed me as a person," right? So it's
and you and me, because we have that in common. Where I'm Cuban, but I was raised here in the States, and you were kind of raised. If you're coming from Argentina or Mexico or Colombia, and you show up here after maybe because you went away to school in the U.S., and now all of a sudden you're in a corporate environment, there is so much that you have to cross over. And a course like that, it springs from the fact that you understand that biculturalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like someone.
you have to take your personal passion and your personal level of expertise, and there has to be value out there for the market, right?
Sure, sure.
And we just happen to be doing stuff we love to do, and we happen to be good at it, but there happens to be a real need for it, right?
Right.
So I have a 9-year-old, and we watch Shark Tank together and the profit and all this stuff, right? And she said,
okay.
she said, Daddy, in simple terms, tell me what a business is. I said, well, business is like a little flower, and so one of the petals is passion. You got to really love it. You got to be passionate about it. Another one is skill. You actually have to be good at it, right? And then the last one, there has to be need. If you get those 3 petals right, you got the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And so
that's
I would say that about your people developing courses as well. Make sure, and I won't speak so much to you, I was speaking to people who are listening. Make sure that any course you develop is not about something that you just want to do or you want to get out there. Make sure there's a real need for it. Make sure that you're passionate about it, you really want to help people through that process. But also make sure you're deeply skilled at it. But a lot of times people do stuff and then they haven't really analyzed the market. The market really doesn't want it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and then
it's hard to sell.
Yeah, no, and occasionally we've built these beautiful oases in the middle of a desert that no one ever sees just because they missed their connection with what people want. So, hey, Ricardo, this was a great discussion. Thank you for sharing all this about us. If people want to reach you, I guess they reach you through Bilingual America?
But through Bilingual America, I'll give my email, just Ricardo, Ricardo, at bilingualamerica.com. If they send me an email, I do have this 12-point checklist on course development. I'd be happy to send it to anybody.
Okay, cool.
So if you want to put that out there, it's just a guide. The first one is the only one we talked about, really. We talked about the white space, but there's several other. So there are 12 points that I think everybody needs to make sure they consider when they're developing a course. So I'd be happy to give it to them. It's something we did for the National Speakers Association a couple years back, and be happy to share it with your clients. They'd be helpful for them.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll publish that when we publish this the interview. And hey, thank you very much. Stay warm down there.
Yep. Thank you, man.
You got it.
Appreciate
Take care.